Okay, we are live.
Okay, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the October 12th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I will tell you why you're here, if you don't already know, and I will tell you how the meeting will be conducted. You are asking us to take an existing city zoning law and change it for you. In order for us to agree to change it, you must show us a hardship as to why you can't live with the existing one. And I will tell you, if it's granted, it stays with the property. It's not something that you can take and move on to the next house and expect that one to be there also. You also, if your request for your variance is not granted, you have the option of taking it to the Court of Common Pleas. The meeting is run in that we have 5 variances to hear this evening. I will read the variance that has been requested. The city will show us on the screen, and they will show us through maps what the existing rule is that you're asking us to change for you. And then we will ask you to come to the podium and make some comments as to why you're requesting this and why not having it granted would be a hardship. I will tell you that when you come to the podium, we have a court reporter in here because this is a quasi-legal proceedings. So that everything you say from now on will be recorded by the best court reporter in Northwest Ohio, who's sitting over here. So when you come to the podium, you must state your name and your address. You may not testify until you are sworn in. When you testify, your testimony must relate specifically to the variance. If it goes off course and it is not related specifically to the variance, we will cut you off. Now, if you think you're going to testify, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? I do. Okay, you're all sworn in. It's very important that you speak up, that you use a mic, not that Joan is hard of hearing, but she needs to be able to get everything that you say. Okay. The first order of business is going to be the approval of the minutes from the September 14th meeting. May I have a motion?
I will so move.
Second.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. The minutes are approved. Our first request for variance was tabled at the last meeting. So I'm going to make a motion to bring it off the table. And may I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The first variance is Scott Gagnier, 855 Standish Drive, has requested a variance to allow the construction of a 16-foot by 28-foot addition roof overhanging already constructed, which would encroach 11 feet into the required 30-foot setback from the rear property line to the south and 1 foot into the required 25-foot front yard setback, corner lot, front yard that faces Brim Road. A variance is also requested to allow the construction of a 6-foot tall fence already constructed to be located in the 25-foot front yard setback, front yard that faces Brim Road, which would be 2 feet taller than the 4-foot maximum allowed. Heather?
Thank you. So I did put a history letter in your packet, just to give you some background on this request. So on July 27th of this year, code enforcement discovered a new patio, new privacy fencing, and a roof expansion at this property. So after researching the files, they discovered there was a permit for the patio, but not for the fence and the roof addition. On August 16th, so actually he sent a letter first, obviously that's in your packet. And then August 16th, the owner came into the office to submit the application for the new fence panels and for that roof extension. And then it was discovered, of course, that a variance was required. Then it was on your agenda, of course, and the applicant asked that that be tabled because he wanted to look for some pins in his yard or potentially have a survey. So he did find those pins and did amend the sketch slightly. So we gave you the original sketch and then the amended sketch. So you had the most current version. So again, just want to give you an update on that. So as far as the zoning code, section 150.16, bulk and density requirements, the property is zoned R2 single family. So we have the minimum front yard setback of 25 feet. This is also a corner lot, so it has two front yards, the Brim Road portion and then the Standish Drive. Then under section 150.90 fences B, you're allowed to have a 4-foot maximum when placed within a required front yard setback, but must not be installed in such a manner as to violate section 150.05. In this situation, it's far enough back from that visibility triangle, which is 150.05. So that's not part of that issue. Here's an aerial view of the property here. So you can get and see Standish corner and then the Brim Road. So again, those two front yards. Using pictometry, here's some views of the property. That would be the back of the house. This would be from the Brim Road portion. This is the front that faces Standish. And then that would be a side view of the property. Here's some pictures of the property. This would be the front from Standish. Looking closer in, you can kind of see those fencing panels there. And then here's looking from Brim Road. You can see the roof expansion and then the fencing there. And then this is actually the fencing that goes past the home into the front yard setback. So that's the portion that would need the variance. And then I know hard to see here, but that was in your packet, the actual sketch highlighting, again, that roof expansion and then the fencing there in orange. We did not receive any phone calls or written correspondence after sending the adjoining property owner letters. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the Ministry of Code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed, first class mail, to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedure requirements for the hearing have been met.
Thank you. Now, the actual hearing goes when we call Mr. Gagne or a representative to come and testify. The board will be able to ask questions. And this will be the public hearing. When I say the public hearing is done, we'll go into the private hearing. Nobody leaves the room. The private hearing is that we just discuss this amongst ourselves. We come back and we vote, and you will have your answer before you leave, whether or not your request for your variance has been granted. So, Mr. Conyer, will you please come to the and state your name and address, please.
I'm Scott Gagne. I live at 855 Standish Drive.
Thank you. And now you can go on and tell us why not being granted this variance for your already constructed things. It will be a hardship.
It would be extreme hardship because of the money and effort and time we put into it. Obviously, it was a honest mistake of the permit situation. We didn't realize that the gable roof cover just for the patio itself needed an extra permit. When we did the permit for the concrete, as you can see on the pictures, the patio just covers the concrete, actually not even total of the concrete. So we just assumed that it was already there. So that we didn't think that the setback would be as bad and encroaching as it is. With the fencing with B, the property behind us, we share that little wood line that was there, and the trees were already 10 foot plus tall. They trimmed those down, so we just ran the fencing out and just ran it to the corner where the trees were originally. And again, I didn't know we needed a permit for that because there was already the trees existing.
Members of the board, do you have any questions for Mr. Gagne?
I do. It could be obvious to any one of us why, but we would like to hear why you folks want to have that fence. And
The fence on the back right there.
yes, sir.
Because once that was all cut out, the fair was going on, and you just see all the traffic across right through to Poe Road and the Poe Road Brim intersection. Just a lot of traffic, and it kind of helps block some of that noise out right there.
Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak to this?
I might. Did you have any conversations or attempt to have any conversations with any of your neighbors about this? Get their feedback?
We didn't.
So when you got the permit for the patio, the concrete patio, there was no intention on your part at that time to build the covered portion in the fence?
Not at the time. In the future, when we went up, possibly in the future, but I guess it was all within a certain amount of time, within a year, that okay, let's just go ahead and do this now while we got it. So it was up in the air, but not,
So you intended to cover it and build the fence when you got the
Eventually.
permit.
yes.
Heather, you have any recollection of any discussions about trying to cover the patio or build the
No,
fence when you came in?
You know, most times I'm the one reviewing the permits, not at the front counter. So we've not talked before.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Questions?
Is there a reason? I know that back fence kind of.
Yeah, because
It doesn't
of,
look
right,
right.
I understand. Because of the tree line that was there, the existing tree line with all the tree, I mean, they were still kind of big, so I just went in the back side of the fence, if you will, instead of the,
It's staggered. I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone drove by.
Yes.
So
okay. And along with the patio, with the neighbors, we already had, when we bought the house, an existing patio, old wooden patio on the back. So I don't, just didn't really seem to think there was already an existing patio. So
Anything else? Okay, thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing, and gentlemen.
I got nothing.
I
anyone
have
else?
nothing.
No questions.
I think, I take him at his word, what happened, and the neighbors to the east especially don't seem to have an objection, and the
We don't have any letters. of
institutional
objections.
use to the south isn't going anywhere, the fairgrounds isn't going anywhere, so I don't have it.
Okay. May I have a motion? Will kind of come out of the private hearing and go into the public hearing, and may I have a motion?
I will, go ahead, sir.
Move to approve as written.
And I'll second that.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Will the secretary call the roll, please?
Matt Bosdorf, yes. Judy Ennis,
Yes.
Hobie Johnson,
Yes,
Rod Noble,
Yes.
Chris Ostrowski,
Yes.
David Flieger, Jay Sockman.
yes,
Sorry, David's not here.
Your request for your variance has been granted. You can pick up the additional paperwork you may need from the planning department tomorrow or so, okay? All right, the second one, is Stephen and Carla Meredith have requested a variance to allow the construction of an approximately 18-foot width ranges from 12 feet to 18 feet by 64-foot driveway to be located at 305 South Enterprise Street, which would encroach 3 feet into the required 3-foot setback from the side property line to the north. Heather?
Thank you. Under section 150.55, off-street parking, general provisions D, off-street parking or loading areas in any district shall be, number one, no closer than 3 feet to any lot line for any single or two-family dwelling. Here's an aerial view of the property. You'll see that there is quite a bit of right-of-way to the north there. That is actually considered Gould Street, but it's unimproved at that section. The house right now doesn't have a driveway. They tend to park in this area, as you can see there. Back this summer, there was actually a street project that was significant on this road, and they actually decided that it was a great idea to have a ADA ramp there and start an approach there. So that was started by the owners, and I'm not sure if it's done yet, but I know that they got a permit through Public Works. And then they decided that they wanted to request additional variance to be able to expand that actually over the property line. But for your scenario, it's just a private driveway to go to the property line. But they would like to go into the right of way and pave similar to the house there to the north. I don't know if you can see that here. They were able to pave into the right of way, which Public Works has been working with the owner and allowing them to do so with the permit if this is approved, but it has to be done to city specifications. So if that was ever improved, the city could take that back and they could utilize that. I just want to give you that extra information. But for now, you're considering, again, that 3-foot setback to encroach into that line. Using pictometry, this shows the property. There's the front, the side, the rear of the home. And then you can see they've started the sidewalk and the ramp project and that approach. And then here's a sketch that was part of your packet showing the driveway kind of meandering there to the side of the house. We did receive one email that I copied you. Really, I think it was just clarifying what the request was. Otherwise, Kathy Baker does state that she did not have a problem with the new driveway construction. That was the only letter, and I don't think we received any phone calls that I recall. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the Administrative Code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed, first class mail to the tax mailing address of the owner and joining property owners. Therefore, all the procedure requirements for the hearing have been met.
Thank you. Mr. Meredith, would you come to the podium, please? It's your name and address.
Stephen Meredith, 11805 East Gypsy Lane Road, Bowling Green.
Okay, now you want to tell us why not having this variance granted would be considered a hardship for you?
In addition to the information that our planning director provided, as she said, there's no existing driveway there now. Construction of the driveway would allow my daughter, who is the resident, to park her car off the street. South Enterprise is a snow street. And when it snows more than 2 inches, she has to find somewhere else to park. The parking that you saw in that small approach is no longer available because of the ADA ramps that were constructed during the street project.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, her car has been vandalized multiple times while parked on South Enterprise. And we would just like to get her car away from the street so that it's not damaged any further.
Is there anyone else here who wants to speak to this? You want to come to the podium, please?
I
And
don't know.
Can I-
Did she get
can we
sworn?
ask
I
Kate
should-
a question? Can we
sure.
ask him a question?
I'm gonna have him stay up here.
Okay.
Okay.
My question is, so you're building this pasture property,
Yes.
correct?
Eventually.
And eventually, so he's not doing it now?
Well, first, this variance has to be approved.
Right, I'm just saying,
In order to get to
if
the
it's
property.
approved tonight, you're gonna build a pasture property line. And I just want to get this right in my head. And say the city one time, hey, we need this.
Mhm. Yeah.
We
That'll
can tear
be-
it up anytime we want to.
It'll be removed at our
Okay.
expense.
And that's correct?
Whoever is the owner.
Correct, yes.
Okay. You don't have a problem with that, okay.
Got it
That
straight in
was-
your head now?
That was my only big issue with this whole
Okay.
thing.
You wanted to speak to this?
Thank you.
Would you come to the podium, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go
Okay,
now.
thank you.
Thank you. Were you sworn in?
I was.
I thought you, state your name and address, please.
My name is Julie Walker. My husband and I own the property to the north, 267 South Enterprise. I do not live in that house. I live in Sylvania. You need that address as well?
Yes, please.
Okay, I live at 9258 Quinn Creek Lane, Sylvania. So as I stated, my husband and I own the house on the other side of the easement. We came before you a little over a year ago, September of 21, to request a variance for a privacy fence, which you did grant to us. The need for the property fence was due to multiple issues from the occupants of 305 South Enterprise and threats to kill us from Travis Lowell, one of the occupants in the house. We do have a civil protection order against Travis. We have not put up the property fence due to the expense of doing so. It was extremely difficult to get materials. Materials were expensive. But if this driveway were to go in, it would be imperative that we had that privacy fence. That would bring those tenants closer to our home there, our rental property that we have. And I don't believe that those tenants have the self-control if they were going to be on the side of the house that much more frequently, because now they had a reason to be over there. Going to open the door to a lot more issues. So we've already incurred lots of expenses because of the situation with the neighbors. My son and other students formerly lived in the house, so it is rental property. We did not feel that we could any longer rent to students because of all the issues that had developed with the tenants at 305. And we felt that we really needed to have a family in there, and families are not as profitable as students. So we already, lost money doing that. We've turned it over to a property management company so that we were not at the house frequently, trying to diminish any interaction. That has caused us to lose some money. We've also had to hire an attorney to send him a reminder. I was advised by the attorney to send a letter rather than just straight call the police. And actually, I want to say, I hope Travis is not in this room.
But you have the permit to build the fence. You were granted the permit.
You
granted,
granted, yes. And then when we continued the investigation to get that, it was going to be, it made our rental property not profitable. So we might as well sell the house at that point. So we've incurred expenses to get a fence put up, which we feel we would have to have that if they were going to be spending time now on the north side of their property more frequently. The only part of the civil protection order that we cannot enforce is when he is home, because you can't tell him that he has to remain 500 feet from someone when that's where he lives.
I believe that's why we gave you the permit for the fence when you were here before, because
Yes.
I remember that. So.
Exactly. But it was cost prohibitive for us to do it when we really found someone that we could get to do the fence. So we just don't feel that it's safe to give them that driveway because it would cause them to spend more time on the north side of their property.
So that is the hardship that you're claiming.
That's
It's
the
not safe.
hardship
Okay.
to us.
Okay.
It's not safe, and it would cause us to have to put the privacy fence up, which now makes our rental property no longer profitable. And I don't have a rental property to not
Okay.
have some income from it. I wouldn't have any problem with this driveway if we had a normal, respectful neighbor that
Okay.
we could trust.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Is
thank you.
there anyone else? Gentlemen, do you have any questions? You certainly may.
Do I need my name again? Thank you. The individual that Ms. Walker was speaking of, this Travis Lowell, is no longer a resident of that house.
Thank you.
In fact, we ourselves and our daughter have a protection order against him as well. So he is not allowed anywhere near the property within 500 feet.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
that's
Meredith.
just what I wanted to add.
Thank you. That's important information. Thank you. Gentlemen, do you have any questions or comments?
Minor
Okay.
answer.
Then we'll go back into the public hearing, and may I have a motion?
I motion that we vote on the appeal as presented.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
The motion has been made and seconded. Will the secretary call the roll, please?
Judy Ennis.
Yes.
Hoppy Johnson.
Yes.
Rod Noble.
Yes.
Chris Ostrowski.
Yes.
Jay Sockman.
Yes.
Matt Bosdorf, yes.
Your request for your variance has been granted, and obviously your fears have been alleviated. So thank you very much. The next one, the third request is from David Wilson on behalf of Mauer Rentals, has requested a variance to allow the construction of a 55.07 fence by 51.5 foot driveway and parking area already constructed, which would encroach 3 feet into the required 3-foot setback from the side property line to the north and the rear property line to the west at 903 North Enterprise. Heather?
Thank you. So I just wanted to point out that essentially number 3 and 4 are going to be the same information that I present because they're obviously related and the same ownership and the same type of request. So just stop me if you don't want me to repeat everything, but we'll go through this first. So in your packet, I did give you a history letter just to catch up on that. So in regards to 903 and 907 North Enterprise, on August 11th of this year, a complaint was made to the city about the public sidewalks not being installed for these properties. So in response to that, the code enforcement officer did check on that and also checked on the site plan and did find that the required setbacks for the site plan that were presented and approved were not followed. And the work had already been done, obviously. So after code enforcement visited the site and again found that out, eventually then we had subsequently a letter sent to the owner, and that was in your packet, a copy that was sent to the property owner. And there was an email response received from the city on August 29th, and that was copied to you. The owner was stated that he was told by Public Works he did not have to install that sidewalk due to a gas line project. So we did send that to the city engineer for clarification, and that is on Exhibit C, which he responded that the city did request that they hold off until actually a road project there was finished for, let me look here on that email just to get that right. So this is from the city engineer. We did have them hold off on sidewalks, but it was not due to the gas line replacement. It was for the curb ramp at Frazee and Enterprise that needed to be replaced, and it was going to be better to wait on sidewalk installation. The curb ramp was replaced a couple months ago as part of our 2022 paving project, and the sidewalk can now be installed. So we did figure out that information and relayed that to the owner. We also provided a copy at the request of the owner of the zoning code, which does require the 3-foot setback. On August 31st, I actually emailed the city attorney, Mike Marsh, former city attorney, to get his opinion on Mr. Mauer's letter regarding the 3-foot setback. He was questioned whether that could be paved or not. And Mr. Marsh replied, affirming the fact that the setback cannot be paved without a variance. On September 1st, I emailed Mr. Mauer with the city attorney's opinion. That was actually from our code enforcement officer, Exhibit E. On September 13th, Mr. David Wilson, representing the property owner, came into the planning department office to inquire about getting a variance. Mr. Wilson submitted that application on September 14th, and that brings us to tonight. Also, as part of your packet, I did give you a copy of that approved permit as an exhibit, along with the site plan that was approved. So under section 150.16, pardon me, let me move ahead here. So under that driveway code, I don't have it here. That is where that 3-foot setback is required that we had mentioned on the last case. So again, that's for the single family and 1-family dwelling. So you'll see here, the lot here, that's 903. That's on Enterprise. Obviously, the houses were just built here around 2021, so they're not shown here. And using pictometry, you actually can see the process of them partly being built. And then here's the rear of the property. Another view. And then the front of the property. Here's pictures of the 2 homes completed. Here's the front of 903. Here's the front of both the homes. And then here's the rear of the property where you can see the entire backyards paved. There's another view of the back. And that actually is a portion of the city alley too. And then here's the site plan that was in your packet. Hard to read there, but essentially there's the request for the setback here that was on the site plan to be 3-foot setback and grass. Same here, highlighted in yellow. And then highlighted in yellow too is again that 3-foot setback that was supposed to be the grass. So we did receive a notification that I put in your packet. It is dated September 27th of this year from Greenbrier Inc., addressed to me, Heather Saylor, BG Planning Department, regarding Mauer Rentals variance, response of Napoleon Landing LLC. Dear Ms. Saylor, we are in favor of the variance being granted. It is logical and practical, respectively, John D. Mauer. And then essentially the same letter from Kenneth Mauer in response to MTRE Enterprises LLC. And then another one for Robert Mauer in response to Mauer Rentals, again, all in favor of the variance. And then a third one from David Mauer on behalf of the response of Heinz Apartments LTD, that letter that they received as a neighboring property owner. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the Administrative Code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed first class mail to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedure requirements for the hearing have been met.
Thank you. I would like to explain that Mr. Noble just didn't decide he wanted to sit in a different seat. He is recusing himself because of an interest in these two properties. So, so Rod, you can, Mr. Wilson.
I'm David Wilson. I live at 208 Everly Avenue, represent this matter for the Maulers in Greenbrier. Appreciate you taking a look at what we're trying to do here. A number of the other things that we had done on these two properties, which adjoined some of his other properties, we obviously addressed in the beginning with zoning to make sure we handled stormwater, things of that nature. Part of my original design, we had a few of the other setbacks in there, but when we looked at everything and we improved the city alley, we repaved that. They just at that time paved the 3-foot setbacks. We took out the 6 foot, which is 3 foot and 3 foot on each side between the properties. We figured that with the tenants, they would have probably driven across the grass and created more mud, and that was easier for turning and parking ease. That's why they ended up doing it that way. But definitely on the north property line of 907 and the south property line, we definitely kept grass area there for filter strips so we could handle storm drainage. So we definitely did put more paving in, but it seemed to be geometry wise, it worked out better for tenants pulling in, backing out, things of that nature. Plus, we did improve the existing city alleyway. It was needed repair, so we resurfaced and repaved that. So
Okay.
we covered all the other issues that was zoning back when, the day before we built.
Okay. Gentlemen, do you have any
Help me
questions?
understand what your relationship is with the Maulers. Are you a home builder or what is your, I apologize, I just don't know.
That's okay. Basically, I take care of some of their design issues, residentially, commercial, industrially, with my architects, engineers. We help them with design, permitting, things of that nature to try and make sure we can help them be compliant to get things done around the state and wherever their properties are. So they call on me when they want things to be taken care of or addressed for them.
So you're an employee then? Is
No,
it? No, contractor, architect, engineer?
I have my construction management firm.
Okay.
And then I have architects, engineers that support me, civil engineers, mechanical, electrical architects help us as we need them. I'm kind of facilitator, shall we say.
But been doing it for quite a while.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I must say, Mr. Wilson, it's a real surprise to see you here asking for a variance after I listened to you on the plan commission. You keep telling us that we had to enforce the existing zoning rules. So,
And I agree. It just, this one here has some logical sense based on the geometry of these two properties. These made sense where they were going to be developed as they're allowed to. And it was just changing the parking paving areas. That ended up being different than what we had originally planned.
See, you said two properties.
Yes, sir.
With this parking lot, it makes it look like one property, almost like an apartment complex. That's where my issue is with the center.
And I understand, but also based
You know,
on,
if we're in a residential area, sort of on that side,
Hmm.
and then the apartments are on the other side,
yes,
and it's kind of like creeping over.
I understand. And then they have the old Sentinel building right behind there. So the adjacent property of the Sentinel building. So it's kind of intermixed with
Right.
commercial as well. But like I say, other than the 6 foot between the two properties that are adjoining each other, we made sure we had swales in place to handle storm drainage, stormwater with my civil engineer. Just they paved that center section. So
And that was my concern was the drainage. The way that it looks now with it going all the way into the alley and everything, it looks like if there's any settling or movement of that asphalt back there, the alleyway, there's going to be some drainage issues.
Most of that alley had either tilted to Frazee or had tilted to the properties on the west anyhow. That 3-foot strip would have taken care of some, but most of the stuff drained either to the west or down to Frazee.
I'm worried about the water coming off the parking lot that's now behind the houses.
That's what I'm saying.
Where that water's going to go into the alley now. Instead of,
Well, it goes to the alley, but goes to the west, but also we tilt to the south on 903, and we also tilt to the north on 907. So
Did you give direction to the pavement company to go ahead and pave that, or did they do that on their own? Or at what point was that decision made to just go ahead and pave the whole thing?
once I had done what I had done with the city zoning permits and building permits with the county, then I usually step back away and I hand the plans back to the owner and the client, and then they proceed unless they call me for issues. I don't step back in figuring what I have written and what I have prepared was basically going to be followed at that time.
so the error was with the paving company making the error by paving it over?
Probably the client and the paving company said, "Hey, while we're here, why don't we do this?" So that's probably why they
Didn't follow the plans that were approved?
at that time, what was approved at the time. Yes, sir.
Well, you're kind of saying some of the things I was going to be asking. My concern was that when they were under construction, they obviously were two separate domiciles. And when you were considering parking for them, you obviously had to go to the back side of the property or the west side of it.
Yes, sir.
And when you did so, you knew there was going to be a parking lot there. It seemed, I guess I question why you did not, in your plans, develop a drainage system, a storm drain inside, like the central part of that parking lot, if you were going to make it one whole large parking lot rather than separate plats with grass that would absorb some of the runoff.
Right. And if I'd known that they had thought about changing to what they'd actually installed, I probably would have made the suggestion to at least get, some sort of an inlet in the center of that instead of them just tilting the asphalt pavements to the north and the south and the west.
So is it possible that you can retrofit that development by cutting in a drain system?
We could plan to figure out a way to cut in an inlet somewhere where it would pick up any of the extra flow. Then we'd have to jack bore and push something underneath the pavement, hopefully not damaging what's there now, to jack bore something down or to do a catch basin and hopefully just catch it all there. We wouldn't run to any city storm. It'd just be a French drain catch basin is all that we could probably do because we wouldn't take it to city.
Are you indicating you'd be willing to do that?
We could do something like that if you would request that we need to do something. We just have to go back to the owner and say, based on accepting what they have installed, if we were to add a storm drain, I would go back and tell them that we just need to bore in and cut in a catch basin, a French drain catch basin there.
So is the owner, is it Bob Maurer or Maurer Reynolds or David Maurer or who, all of the above? It's a
Yes, sir.
conglomerate.
Yes, sir. It's all the above.
You said it's tilted to the north and to the south, but I didn't see much of a grade there. Do you know what the grade percentage is?
Very slight, but it's sheet flows, but it's very slight, but it does sheet flow. Yes. They tilted it enough to where it will run off to the north, to the south, to the west. Yes.
And I noticed that, except, sir, that I went there under heavy rain, and I noticed that although it does flow towards the street, towards Frazee, it also ponds. And that's my concern. In fact, I think there's even a picture in here among them that shows that ponding.
I saw that it's pretty shiny where the water, when it's on there, it's pretty shiny. You can see the water. And yes, but I don't know whether it's deep or whether it ultimately will sheet flow off, but it's very slight of a pitch or slope to it.
Yes, sir.
There's no real percentage of grade that really falls fast.
Explain to me a little more about the advantage of paving it. I'm looking at how the parking spots are laid out on the the plan. I'm just a little confused how that helps.
Well, in the beginning, I had it laid out to where one could pull in to the south or to the north the way I had the parking originally planned. And that's why with that 6-foot center filter strip, it was okay. But, with tenants, how they back and drive around, they're not farm kids and they don't pay attention to what they're backing up. So I'm sure that the owners probably felt it was easier to maintain that than it was to try and maintain grass or mud. But I had it designed where it could have worked. The geometry would have worked based on city standards and
They
normal
have
ODOT.
garages, right?
Hmm?
They have garages.
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
Why do we need some big parking area?
Well, it's based on it is a 5-bedroom unit. So it is 5-bedroom unit. So.
Could still have that middle space. Some people park in the garage, have that area.
So with paving it, did that add additional parking spots?
The tenants are going to park how they want. I don't
It's
know.
not lined?
It was not intent to put more parking spaces because they were going to park the way they were supposed to park. I think they just made it for ease and convenience of maintenance of the site, and instead of having grass or mud to deal with.
So there's no lines painted on it yet.
I don't know. I don't think
No.
they put any. They have not put any. They have not delineated the parking spots. We could get them to delineate the parking spots anyhow as well. My plan had it to showing the basic parking spots.
I don't know. In my opinion, this reeks of do it and ask for forgiveness. My apologies, but I'm not real sympathetic.
Any other questions, comments?
And is that on all three areas, even up against the city alleyway?
Certainly between the property lines.
That's where my biggest problem.
Yep.
Mhm.
Property. Like that. Property.
I don't have any further questions.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, gentlemen. We're going to take the first request.
My biggest concern is the drainage. And with those areas gone, that water's going to go, that alleyway is going to freeze. It's nearly not going to drain anywhere. And the grade, when I looked at that grade, there's not much of a grade there at all. And with the lack of any kind of, the Mars being here saying they would put in another drainage system in, I don't feel comfortable with how it's set up right now.
I'm of the mindset that I'd like to hear from the owner and why that it's a hardship to the owner. It's a little tough for me sometimes to listen to someone who's got strictly a financial attachment to the project tell me that there's hardship. That it's kind of, remember, sometimes we have sign vendors and things come in. Of course, they want the variance granted that yields dollars to them. So that's the first part of the problem. The second part, again, it's not like this is a new contractor. They've been doing business for quite some time. I feel like with the notice that the city gave them, I'm a bit unsympathetic. At least to the center, at least to the green space is supposed to be dividing the property.
My problem is also a drainage. However, I'm not so angry that we can't work out something possibly with the city. And that would entail the owner agreeing to putting in drainage into that.
Yeah, and I have no problem with that either.
Except
Drainage
that
is my
water.
issue, but right now there's no plan in place. There's no one here
Correct.
to represent. They say
I
they
understand
would
that,
definitely do that.
but that would be my
That's it.
suggestion to offer back from the city.
Anybody else? All right, we're going to come out and we're going to the public hearing. Gentlemen, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Your motion is moved to do what, sir?
Just to
Approve it.
just to approve the motion.
Okay.
As
Second.
presented.
It's presented. Yes.
I'll second.
Okay.
And are we, okay. There are two. Are we just going to vote on both of them simultaneously?
No, we
No,
vote
it's
on-
just
we have to take them separately.
Okay. So the first one that you voted, we vote on, or that you suggested we vote on is
Yes.
for the setback for the, between the properties. Is that
Right,
where? Okay.
right.
Yeah, 903.
All right. May I call the roll?
Yes, please.
Rod Noble.
Rod is it?
Rod is, he recused
himself.
himself. Chris Ostrowski,
No,
Jay Sockman,
No,
Judy Ennis,
No,
Hobie Johnson,
No,
Matt Bostorff, no.
sir, Mr. Wilson, your request for this variance was denied. However, as we indicated, that we strongly suggest that you work with the city or that you have Mr. Mauer work with the city because there are options such as cutting an inlet and therefore drainage. Okay. The next request for a variance is David Wilson on behalf of Mauer Reynolds has requested a variance to allow the construction of a 55.07 foot by a 51.5 foot driveway and parking area already constructed, which would encroach 3 feet into the required 3-foot setback from the side property line to the south and the rear property line to the west at 907 North Enterprise Street. Mr. Wilson?
Again, it's the same scenario. It's the adjoining property again, which was connected to the 903. So same question, same issue.
Have any questions, gentlemen?
I do not.
I do not.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilson. We'll now go into the private hearing. Close the public hearing.
same concerns as the previous one.
Okay,
No comment.
okay. May I have a motion, please? We'll come back into public hearing and may I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Will the secretary call the roll?
Who did I start with last time? Chris. Jay Sockman,
no,
Matt Bostorff, no. Judy Ennis,
No.
Hobie Johnson,
No,
Chris Ostrowski,
No,
Did you call yourself?
I did.
This request for a variance was not granted. Again, you have the same options. We suggest you work with the city to cut an inlet for the drainage problems. Okay. Now, Mr. Noble's going to come back and join us for the reading of the fifth one. And that is the fifth request for variance is Norman Holly of Holly Properties Management Company, LTD, has requested a variance to construct a 26-foot by 32-foot addition to an existing garage to be used as a single-family residence, which would encroach 12 feet, 8 inches into the required 30-foot setback from the rear property line to the south at 145 Dixie Street, which is to the west of and behind 702 South Main Street, identified as parcel number B08-510-25021802100. Heather?
Thank you. So this property is zoned R2 Single Family Residential. So under section 150.16 bulk and density, there is a rear yard requirement, a minimum of 30 feet. Here in this aerial view, we do have the property highlighted there. Using pictometry, you can see this is actually an existing garage. So he wishes to add to that and make that a single family dwelling. Here's a front of the property or the structure. And here's some pictures of the property. You can see he had quite a bit of trees taken down there. That's why there's some dirt there. Here's a sketch that was part of your packet. There's existing garage again, and then we highlighted that addition. We did assign it an address of 145 Dixie, so you had a copy of that. We did not receive any written correspondence. I believe we had one phone call today, but really was just asking more details about where the property actually was. So it wasn't any concerns that we heard.
Zoned what? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
R2 single family. Mhm. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the Ministry of Code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed first class mail to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedure requirements for the hearing have been met.
Thank you. Mr. Holly, you want to come up here? We have a microphone right down here for you. You're not a bother at all, sir. No, you're not.
I appreciate it.
You want to give us your name and address, and then you can tell us why you're requesting this and
Yes,
what
I'm
the
Norman
hardship would
Holly,
be.
1732 Bowling, Club Street, Bowling Green, Ohio. I lived all my life here. And we own the triplex directly across 145 Dixie, right across the street. And when this property came available, we noticed that it needed quite a bit of help. There was a forest there that was rather decrepit with people driving, kids walking by, and the trees could fall on it. We completely removed that forest, basically, there's 10, 12 trees there, and went in, and the sidewalks along the thing has basically been underwater, mud on it for I don't know how many years. So part of the project that we have is to replace the sidewalks. And while we're doing that, in order to recoup our costs and to make the property in the area look better, we'd like to build this addition. The addition will be a 2-bedroom, bath and a half, which will include a garage and a dishwasher and a space for a washer and dryer. And it's going to be good property, to be an asset to the community. And we own the triplex directly across the street. And it encroaches about 42% of the total property available. So it's not a large thing. I think it's a good endeavor for the city, and I hope that you can see fit. I would like to say that I'm really impressed. Usually, I remember my family does this, but they've all retired and I'm still here. So
Well, we're glad of that.
you have to put up with me, but
We're glad to
I'm
do that.
impressed with the quality of presentation that you've made and the quality of the people I've had to work with. I have to say that it's very pleasant.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
We think we have the world's greatest planning department and
You
city
do, you do.
administrators also.
I'm not
so.
trying to gain favor.
I know.
It's true, because
That
sometimes
doesn't hurt.
you run into some that aren't so nice.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'm sorry.
you're fine.
Yeah.
You're fine.
The only question I have is the garage going to remain a garage?
Sir,
Is the garage going to stay a garage?
is it a what kind?
Is the garage going to remain the garage? Or is it
Yes,
gonna
the
be-
garage will remain basically as it, except at the end of the garage will remove where the house is. The one end of the garage where you can see where there's a door there, it goes into it. We separated the garage into two pieces so that 702 South Main has a garage that's 24 by 14, and the other half will be for the 145 Dixie. So each one will have their own garage, off-street parking. And
Yeah.
we just, that's the way we run property. We try to take care of it, and we do the best we can. If we make mistakes, we make mistakes, but we hope we don't.
As long as you learn from them.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Holly?
So you own 702 right now.
I own 702. We bought we bought the entire property of 702 when it became available because it was right across the street from the property I already owned.
Gotcha.
And I talked to the people and they said it's an in-lot. I didn't even know what an in-lot was. And so they separated the in-lot. They separated the in-lot to two 100-foot parcels. And that's the reason that I wanted to build this thing on it, because the house, if you look at the sod line where it goes up, it doesn't actually, the garage won't go out as far as the house does already on the lot line going back, but that's immaterial. I mean, it's part of it. We tried to make it fit the best we could without delinquencing the quality of the building we wanted to build.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
No issues with lot coverage, just the setback. Yes.
Correct, yes.
Any other questions before we go into the private? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Holly.
Thank you.
Questions, comments, gentlemen?
Well, it's a good sized house, and remember the history of that house. I think it was moved from when they put in the Pine roller rink.
Oh, really?
That house was moved down
I didn't
there.
realize you were that old, Chris.
I hate it well. I hate it well.
You do.
You want me to leave?
You can stay right there if you want to.
Sorry.
Anything else?
Nothing.
Okay, we'll come out of the private hearing and go into the public hearing. And may I have a motion, please?
I move the variance request be approved as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second,
Will the secretary call the roll, please?
Hold on one second. Who seconded that? Hobie or
Yeah,
Chris?
no,
Oh, Chris.
Chris did.
I got it. Thank you. Jay Sockman,
Yes.
Matt Bosdorf, yes. Judy Ennis.
Yes.
Hobie Johnson,
Yes.
Rod Noble,
Yes.
Chris Ostrowski.
yes.
Your request for your variance was granted, Mr. Holly.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
You're very
kind.
welcome, sir.
Thank you for taking up your time.
You didn't take up our time. That's what we make the big money for.
Huh, you're getting paid.
The sixth variance request is, and I hope I have your last name right, Laurel Brule, 414 Pine Valley Drive, has requested a variance to allow the construction of an 18-foot by 25-foot 6-inch addition to the existing accessory building, which would encroach 3 foot 6 inches into the 10-foot required setback to the side property line to the south, and 12 feet 6 inches into the 20-foot required setback from the primary structure. The existing accessory structure encroaches 1 foot 9 inches into the 10-foot required setback to the side property line to the south.
Madam Chair, may I recuse myself, please?
Please do.
Okay, thank you.
These gentlemen aren't just tired of sitting next to me. They really have a reason for doing that.
Ma'am, that's.
Heather?
Thank you. So under section 150.90 rear yards, B accessory buildings, number 2, an accessory building that is larger than 160 square feet shall be no closer than 20 feet to the primary structure, 20 feet to the rear lot line, and 10 feet to the side property lines. And the structure may not exceed 18 feet in height. There actually is an existing structure already there, an accessory structure. So they do wish to add to that a roof. And so as part of your packet, we do have the renderings that were submitted, and then of course the sketch. So I ended up doing a history letter later after we have a property owner that had had some concerns with encroachments. So I wanted to just give you a history of the property because originally it was used as, I guess you could kind of call it a compound. I mean, there were actually 2 lots, but I think the original intent of when the house was built was to kind of operate as one lot, if that makes sense, the way they built the accessory building, the house, the pool. So I just went through the file, gave you a history so you could understand that hopefully a little bit better. And I gave you a copy of that. So I gave you the parcel numbers and then gave you everything in the file, copies of that. And again, the ownership. So just so you kind of see how it changed hands and how that worked out. So in April 4th of 1997, the land was purchased by Jerry Batt. He purchased 2 parcels. And I gave you a copy of Exhibit A showing all the parcel transfers highlighted. On March 17th of 1998, Exhibit B, a permit was approved for new construction, a single family house to be built on parcel B08 510 26000 10 and then 50000, which is actually the address of 414 Pine Valley Drive. And that was for Jerry and Angie Batt. Then on September 10th, 1999, a permit, which is labeled Exhibit C, was approved for a 13-foot by 14-foot accessory structure that was labeled on that site plan as pool house. Again, gave you a copy of that with that plot plan, and that was also for Jerry and Angie Batt. The pool house was to be located 20 feet from the house, 48 feet from the rear property line, and 91.5 feet from the side property line. So that shows you that they were actually using the entire 2 parcels as one. So I just wanted to point that out at that time. And then the pool house was to be constructed at an angle according to the sketch that was provided. The plot plan submitted and approved shows both parcels again as one parcel because it didn't show that shared lot line. On October 6th of 1999, a permit labeled Exhibit D was approved for a 19-foot by 39-foot in-ground pool for Jerry Batt. The pool was to be placed on that parcel known as 414 Pine Valley Drive. On April 14th of 2000, a permit labeled Exhibit E was approved to construct a fence at 414 Pine Valley Drive for Jerry Batt. The fence appeared to be required to enclose the in-ground pool to the west and south of the yard, as it was shown on the plot plan. That is what our assumptions are for that. And then June 15th, 2001 through April 24th of 2008, you'll see the properties were transferred on several different occasions from Jerry Batt to Angela Batt, trustee, then to Jerry and Angela Batt, and finally it was transferred back to Angela Batt, trustee, when it continued to be in the name of the trust until 2011. Again, back to Exhibit A on that. On January 28th of 2010, there is a boundary survey labeled Exhibit F in the city's address file that creates that existing diamond-shaped lot that's identified as parcel number B08 510-26000010490001. This was likely done to place the property line a minimum 10 feet from the existing pool house so that the house at 414 Pine Valley Drive and the lot to the south could be sold. And then on July 18th, 2011, the property at 414 Pine Valley Drive was purchased by Stephen and Laurel Brule. And then on September 15th, 2007, that lot that is south of 414 Pine Valley Drive was transferred from Angela Batt, trustee, to Steve G. Janstow and Leatra J. Harper, trustees. Then later on December 4th, 2020, the property was transferred to Jacqueline C. Metz, trustee. On May 28, 2021, the property of 414 was transferred to Laurel Brule, trustee, by a warranty deed. And then on June 1st, 2022, an adjacent property owner to the south, Rick Metz dropped off a survey to our office labeled Exhibit G. He had wanted that on the city record. And the survey of his property where a house was recently built at 420 Pine Valley Drive. And then that survey was due to the owner's concern of property line encroachments. On October 3rd of 2022, Jason Westgate, our code enforcement officer, met with Mr. and Mrs. Brule after my request to do so to measure some properties in the sketch that was submitted to make sure it seemed accurate since we were receiving concerns from the neighbor to the south. Again, we don't deal with property line encroachments, but we wanted to have an idea that that seemed correct as to what was submitted and do our best to determine that our opinion seemed like it made sense what was being submitted. Mr. Westgate sent me an email with his findings, which is labeled Attachment Exhibit H, along with a sketch he used to take notes of his measurements. October 4th of 2022, Mr. Metz, the property owner to the south, sent Jamie Kominick, our administrative assistant, an email filing a formal complaint, which is Exhibit I, that the existing pool encroaches in the required 10-foot side yard setback and that there is an electric and a cable service line on his property, again, to the south. This was also after I received an email from the former city attorney, Mike Marsh, in which Mr. Metz also went to his office to ask for his opinion. And we have Mr. Marsh's response attached, Exhibit J. On October 11th of this year, John Stewart, which is the city's electric superintendent, said he is working with the Brules, who have agreed to move the electric line onto their own property rather than the property to the south. And that is labeled Exhibit K, where Mr. Stewart does indicate they will be doing that in the fall. Additionally, in the address file for 414 Pine Valley, I have a copy of the original plat that was already there, which is Stone Ridge Golf Club Plat 1 in lot 6080, and that's labeled as Exhibit L. And that is what was all in the file. Again, I know this is a lot, but again, I wanted to give you some background on that. So if you have any questions on the packet, please let me know.
I have one for you, Heather. There was another email from Mr. Marsh.
Yes, I apologize. Yes, that is dated September 29th to myself and then copied the new city attorney who happens to be in the room. He had an email from Mr. Metz that he had did some discussions with the county. I believe it was county engineering, and they looked at an aerial that was submitted to Mr. Marsh, and Mr. Marsh responded, or at least forwarded this email to me where he says, Heather, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, I have reviewed the aerial mapping with Carrie Rothenbuehler and the county engineer's office of the Metz parcel and the two Brule parcels. It is my opinion there are no lot line encroachments by either the Brule or Metz improvements onto the other. Whether or not a variance is granted, the Brules for additional improvements should not be affected by claims that deviate from the public records and should be analyzed independently from other issues not related to the request for the variance, specifically Michael Marsh, Marsh and Marsh Law.
considering Exhibit J and the emails included in that. Is the September 29th email that you just read from Mr. Marsh, is that still valid?
As far as I'm aware, yes. So back to my presentation on the screen, this is our typical aerial view of the property we like to show you. So that is the house there. And you can see that little diamond shaped parcel. Using pictometry, you can see the house there, the side and rear view, a front view, and then a rear view. And there's the side. And here's pictures. That's the front of the house. And here's the side of the home. You can see there the existing accessory structure. And then adjacent here is the newer house that was built. Looking at the backyard, you can see a portion of the existing accessory building and then the hot tub there in the back of the house. Another view of the pool, rear yard, and the accessory building. There's another view. We can see more of the back of the house and the pool. Here's another direct view of the back of the house and pool. And then this is just looking at the side of the house a little closer and then to the neighboring property. And then here's looking at, again, the side of the house and then the back of the accessory structure. A little closer view there between the accessory and the other house to the south. Here was a sketch that was part of your packet. I didn't put the renderings up here, but I figured you had those in your packets to be able to see how they wish to proceed with that. Here's the aerial view from our code enforcement officer that when he met with the Brules, he did take his own notes and measurement to the best of his ability. And he jotted those down here, and I gave you a copy of those, but he felt the pool is the size that was on the permit application, along with, in general, the measurements that were provided. So we also received, I guess I would say, several emails that I will read into the record. So we have, start from the back here. We received an email on Monday, October 10th of this year at 1:49 p.m. Subject 414 Pine Valley. To whom it may concern, at the BG Planning Department, we live at 1401 Sawgrass Court in Bowling Green, Ohio, and are next door to Stephen and Laurel Brule at 414 Pine Valley. We have no objections to the Brules planned building/renovation project. Sincerely, Richard Vernier and Patricia McCutcheon Vernier, MD, 1401 Sawgrass Court, Bowling Green, Ohio. And then I received an email from Tom O'Brien dated Tuesday, September 27th, 2022, 4:31 p.m. Subject variance request at 414 Pine Valley Drive. We oppose the request for variance at 414 Pine Valley for several reasons. Number one, though we have not seen a plan for the proposed project, we are concerned that it may have a negative effect on the attractiveness of the neighborhood. Number two, with the completion of construction of the house just built at 420 Pine Valley Drive, we assumed that the annoyance of such projects in the neighborhood was a thing of the past. Number three, in general, we believe that building codes exist for a reason and that variances should be granted only for compelling reasons, and that the more extreme the variance, the stronger the argument for it should be. We understand that we do not have all the details, but unless the board feels that there is a real need for this construction project, the request for variance should be denied. Thomas O'Brien, Barbara O'Brien. Another email from Phil Weaver dated Monday, October 10th, 2022 at 4:39 p.m. Subject Laurel Brule variance request 414 Pine Valley Drive. He actually wrote two emails. The first one, back up here, was dated Monday, September 26th, 2:49 p.m. Dear Planning Department, I have read your letter dated September 23rd, 2022 relating to the subject variance request and have no opinion on the matter. The proposed construction is across the street from us and out of view. Given the position of the Brules house relative to ours, it will not impact our property or view of the golf course or neighborhood. Thanks for giving us notice for the upcoming hearing. Given the lack of impact on us and other plans for October 12th, we do not plan on attending the meeting. Phil Weaver, 1400 Sawgrass Court. And then he subsequently writes an email on Monday, October 10th of this year, 4:39 p.m. Dear Planning Department, I sent the note below 2 weeks ago. Subsequently, I discussed the matter with the property owner directly adjacent to the subject property, who has a number of concerns about the variance and some observations about the existing construction on the property as compared to prior variances granted. I assume he'll be at the meeting and urge that his perspective be carefully considered. Phil Weaver, 1400 Sawgrass Court. And then we received an email October 12th, 2022, addressed to Heather Saylor, Planning Director and Zoning Board of Appeals regarding BG Zoning Board of Appeals request for variance for Laurel excuse me. Dear zoning board members, we own the home at 426 Pine Valley Drive and are unable to attend the public hearing scheduled for October 12th, 2022 at 7 p.m. We are writing in support of Laurel Brewell's request for variance to allow the construction of an addition to their existing home. As neighbors and residents of the Stone Ridge neighborhood, we feel the requested variance, or in our opinion, enhancement to their home will only improve the value of their home, which improves the value and desirability of the neighborhood. Thank you, David and Kelly Stalika, 426 Pine Valley Drive, Bowling Green, Ohio. And then we have an email from Laurel Brewell dated October 11th at 1:30 p.m. received, where she actually attached a paper. Why do we need these zoning variance requests granted? And why is this a hardship if not approved today? I assume she's here and is going to go over this, so I won't read that. But again, I wanted to give you a copy since she asked that we do so. And then we also have a presentation from Mr. Metz, the property owner to the south, that I can show next, unless you have any questions for me. Otherwise, I'm going to read my required statement. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the Administrative Code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed first class mail to tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedure requirements for the hearing have been met.
Thank you. Roll. Please state your name and address, and you were sworn in, correct? Okay.
Hi, I'm Stephen Brule. I am new to all of this, so I'll do my best. I'm representing my wife, Laurel, and our 5 children, and I will try and be brief and respect your time. The reason why this would be a significant, I'm asking this grant and a hardship for us is multiple. I would say probably the biggest one, I'm not going to read to the list that you already have, but I would say one of the biggest ones is a drainage problem. Although it's been a problem since the beginning of that pool house construction, which was done before we got there. Every time it rains really hard, there is a lake that forms there. Since the construction of the home next door, that has only worsened the problem. And although, again, I don't know that it's necessary, pictures of just a couple weeks ago on page 2 there, a picture of this small lake that forms around our pool house. That has also led to a significant amount of upheaval of cement around that, which needs to be repaired, which brings me to the variance. The way to fix this and multiple other problems that I'm going to get into really goes back to this request today. If we're going to be able to extend this roof structure, we're going to be able to bring in not just downspouts and gutters to collect that rainwater coming off the pool house, but extend that over beyond toward our house. There's a lot of water, and again, as annoying as it is in the summertime, when you've got this standing water that can be there for days, in the wintertime, when our family, our children, and when our children's friends come over, this turns into a frozen pond. And as our kids try and get back there, we've had several injuries as kids try and get back there on this frozen pond. By us being able to do this, bring the gutter system in, and then properly bring in a drainage system to get all this water out of there, that's going to make a huge difference to not just the safety of our family, but also the quality when it comes to us being able to use that summer and in the. I'm not going to go through all of the topics, but I'm going to hit a couple more high points. Access is another huge thing, and I don't want to go and drag into the details here, but ever since the construction of the neighbor house, we've been unable to use our full access to the back of our pool house, where traditionally we kept all of our riding lawnmower. That's where we were to do it. And we were unable to come to an agreement with the neighbor owner to be able to use that. So we parked that in the car port in our garage. But by doing this extension structure, we'll be able to have access to that again. Furthermore, as mentioned earlier, with the electrical, which is 3 feet over roughly, forgive me for the exact numbers here, onto the neighbor property, which is nobody's fault. No one knew that that was there when the property was sold. I think everyone's in agreement on that. And although when we talked with the electrical inspector and he says 9 times out of 10, this is solved with a simple, what I'm looking for, easement. We were unable to reach an easement with Mr. Metz. So at our expense and the expense of the city, we are going to pay to dig up that electrical that goes to our house and rerun that along our house. In doing that, that is going to have to not just dig up that privacy bush, but at the same time, when the house was dug, it also cut out the sewer line to our pool house, which had a toilet in it. That toilet has been non-functional from day one of that house going in. I have no, that's not the fault of the neighbor. I have no fault of that. That was the previous owner who didn't disclose to us that sewer line went through that property line. But that toilet has not been functioning for 1.5 years. And so in addition to this property addition, we will be digging a trench that will, multiple trenches, I think, for a sewer, for electric, for our cable, which and our internet, which is still running above the line. And this will fix all of those problems in addition to the cement and the drainage problems. So my hope is that if by helping us do this variance today, help us fix these problems and help the quality of our family, our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, do you have any questions for Mr. Bureau while he's there?
I have a couple just real quick.
Sir, you want to come back to the podium?
You mentioned a privacy planting that would have to be removed because of the sewer. Is that the planting that would be between your pool
Correct.
house and the neighbor,
Correct.
the Metz's property?
That's correct.
You intend to replant anything?
So
there, or-
no, you can see the pictures there. And probably the last picture of the one I just handed you, that might be the simplest way. There's tons of pictures I know. On the very last picture, since that bush there is 22 years old, which is, well, you don't see the bush there, but the bush that was there on one of the previous pictures that was shown, this plan that would extend and would
Bush was right here?
maintain the privacy. Yes, exactly. That's where the bush was. This would maintain the privacy. We also have a dog, as well as allow us to have access to the back of the pool house and get our riding lawnmower back there again.
Before you bought the property, did you have any knowledge of all this back and forth with transfers, and not that that's an issue, but the permits for the pool house, the pool, the fence, the fact that there was.
I'm going to go with zero of all that. I will say the most we knew was that the pool was added on later and the pool house was added on later. We did know that the 2 lots were one, and that when they tried to sell us both lots, we said, I just don't know what I would do with the other lot. And so they really were trying to pressure us to buy both lots. And then we said, let's just cut it up and we'll buy this and you keep that. That's what I wish I would have known. Your sewer line's running through the neighbor lawn. Your power line is going to be on the neighbor lawn. And you know what? I wish I would have paid that $40,000 20 years or 11 years ago. That would have saved a lot of problems, but that's too late now.
Any more questions for Mr. Burrell?
I have a question for Heather, if it's an appropriate
Sure.
time. The 2 lots, 49,000 and 50,000, during the time the Bats owned the property there, those lots were always separate, correct?
Correct, yes.
And I know you said they used it as a compound, but does that alleviate the requirement for the setbacks from the lot line there between 49,000 and 50,000?
No, I think just from looking at our record, I think the only confusion was when the pool house was built and they treated it like that was a 91.5-foot side property line. That probably shouldn't have happened that way, because they didn't do that same thing with the house or the pool when it was built. They showed them as 2 separate.
Phyllis, the
I think it just
requirement for
entered-
setbacks never went away between 49,000 and.
Correct. Normally, if someone wants to use both lots as one, they generally put the house across the property lines. We have some people that have done that. And that, in a sense, even though they're 2 separate lots, physically and for tax purposes, that house built across them combines them. And then we would treat those as, those are the side yards, the furthest property lines.
Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak? And please remember, your comments need to refer directly to the variance that we're now looking at,
Sure.
and only that variance.
Thank you, Judy. Rick Metz. I live at 1320 Pine Valley Drive.
I do, yes.
Yeah, we do.
First of all, let me thank Stephen for admitting to some of these things that were in discussion and everything, that he didn't know about these issues. That's why we're here tonight, really. Had he purchased this lot, we wouldn't have had any of these problems. History of property is important. That's why we have title work, zoning regulations. We know about these encroachments, home inspections. And the last and most important thing we have when we talk about history of a property is in 1993, the state of Ohio passed disclosure laws, okay, where the owner that owns the property currently has to disclose any of these sort of problems to the new buyer. We used to say there was a dog for every doghouse, but that changed when these disclosure laws came into play in the 90s. And so I don't have any idea what happened at their closing when they bought this property, but none of this stuff apparently was disclosed to the rules. Hence, that's why we're here tonight. You want to show some of my pictures there, Heather?
She has it up.
Okay. You can go on to number 2. This is out on Avery Drive, property. This picture was taken in the 60s. Okay. You go on to the next picture. This is what it looks like today. With my
Mr. Metz, we
subdivision.
need to see that,
Yeah.
why that ties into this request for. a
That's
variance.
what the next picture is going to show,
Okay.
Judy, which is a deed I had to file. It took me 21 years to straighten out the problems that existed out there on Avery Drive from people that didn't tell the truth, didn't do things correctly 50 years prior. I don't want this to happen in this case. We still own the house at 420 Pine Valley Drive, but we're not going to own it forever. And Steve Brule and his wife are not going to own their house forever. We need to straighten out all these problems. I'm glad we're here tonight publicly, where all this stuff can be brought to the forefront and we can get these things straightened out. As Heather alluded to all these records that she showed you in your packet from the Wood County Auditor and from the city and the permits, and I think, like I said, you have those in your packet. When Jerry Batt platted out his house in 1999, he put it all on one lot. And this was a survey company that did this. He didn't draw this out and sketch this out. It shows it as one lot. So everything was okay as far as the setbacks. And then if you go to the next drawing, which is a year later when they did the swimming pool, that little swimming pool they drew on there is not anywhere near the size of what the pool is today. And I have a picture of that. We'll get to that here and later on. And then the real problem came up when the Batts marital problems happened 10 years later, and they went ahead and split these lots back. And that's the last drawing you have. You can see the survey there. And they had to take.
May I interrupt for 1 second? I
Yeah.
apologize.
Okay.
I'm having a hard time understanding what someone's marital problems have to do with them wanting to add on to a pool house.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Can
why.
you tie it together? For
That's
me?
why they split.
For the house
Yeah.
also did not show the lots as combined. The 1999 permit was for the pool house. That basically, as you state, showed the lots combined.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
misspoke there.
They are no, and then they split the lot back. It had the new survey done, took that little wedge out, so that they could sell the lot separately, which the Brules had an opportunity to buy. Had they bought this lot, none of these problems would have come
Well, that's
forth.
for what they had. I mean, maybe they didn't have the money to buy it. That's not their, I mean, they split it so that they could do
I
that.
think you've been to enough of these to know that we can't consider this, the stuff that you're putting forth to us. It's not relevant to
Okay.
the variance request for the encroachment on the side yard setback.
Okay, let's go to.
We need to stick right with what the actual request for the
Okay, then I
variance
need
is.
to go to the last 3 pictures, which should be 40. There's all the lines that were on my property. The Brules approached us in January with a proposal, which is very similar to the one they have tonight for this variance. And there's a picture in there of that. And they wanted us to give them 5 foot of our property to make that this what they're claiming tonight legal. And we said no. And so they're here tonight asking you to grant a variance in the side yard,
Right.
so that they can make this structure legal. I'm saying it's not a hardship.
Okay.
Okay. This is a luxury structure. If you notice in their proposal, they're asking for a luxury addition, a fireplace with a hot tub. They're going to extend into the side yard setback, which directly affects our property. And I'm saying that this request should not be granted.
Hey, thank you, Rick.
One last thing, Judy. If you'll look at picture number 40.
This one? Okay.
The orange stake is a survey stake. You can see it there in the ground.
Mhm.
The Brules fence is 1.5 feet on the golf course property. All that landscaping area, which is the Brules think is theirs, is all on golf course and my property. So we have already existing encroachments on the back, the one side, and now they're asking for one on this side. And like I said, I don't see any reason that there's any hardship here. They can redesign this project that they want to do and make it all legal and conforming. Mr. Brule stated that they have drainage issues back there. There is a rear yard drain back there on their property, right on the property line. If their property was graded and things were graded correctly to go to that rear yard drain, there would be no standing water problems on their property. So I'm asking the commission to not to approve this variance.
All right. Thank you so
Rick,
much.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what your primary reason is for objecting to this? And don't tell me that it's because of the electric and the cable and the this and that. Is it the aesthetics of it? Is it that it just encroaches into the side yard setback, or is there something?
We already have a choke point there where that pool house is. And they can't open those rear doors of that pool house and get anywhere on their property because the doors swing out 3 feet.
The
And
rear doors?
The
Which
rear doors.
direction? Which
Yeah.
direction? Which direction?
out, they're outswing,
No, north, south, east, or west?
south.
Okay.
Okay. And so they're asking for all of this and they need to maintain things. I'm objecting to the side yard setback. The other setbacks are fine. It's all on their property. It's the side encroaching further in that choke point.
So your objection to this is the encroachment of the 6.5 feet into the side yard setback?
Right, right.
And that's,
Yeah, we need 20 feet between those houses.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen, do you have any other questions or comments?
There's no doubt that there are other ways that we could fix this. We've spent $10,000 trying to find the best way to fix the multitude of problems we have. And this is the best way for us to fix this problem. And at the end of the day, to hopefully make this a very unfortunate feud go away by fixing this. So by granting this, tomorrow will start the first day of us getting our stuff, our utilities. We're really hopeful that we can.
Thank you.
I have go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say, going back to, and I apologize if we got a little stern with you about trying to redirect you back to the variance request, but when we consider these, as we all know, it's based on the practical difficulties, unnecessary hardships, and peculiar circumstances. And I think, as both of you acknowledge, this is nobody's fault. I think it's just an unfortunate circumstance that you're both in. And I think it stems back to that 1999 permit for that pool house, when those two lots were treated as one, and there was a 91.5 foot side yard setback. Now, I know you weren't here, but I think you'd have probably caught that and scratched your head and said, now, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. So that started the snowball. That pool house being constructed with a permit issued by the city. That affected where the pool was subsequently located. That affected where the fence was subsequently built, and that's how we got here today. So having said that, and I appreciate your frustrations with, and yours almost more so, with having utilities on your lot that you don't want. Why you don't want them in an easement, I don't know. That's not up to me. But all that said, I have to go back to, you know, what we need to consider, and that's what the variance
Variances.
request is for, that 6.5 foot
Right.
encroachment into the setback. I sympathize with you guys a lot, but this is just a really bad, unfortunate situation that was created. I can't imagine it was intentional, but that sketch got drawn showing that pool house with, you know, even if it would have been drawn correctly, showing the lot line between 49,000 and 50,000, I think it would still have been 1.5 feet. And it would require a variance back then.
No. True, but you read the city requirement. Separate building ones are 5 feet.
Matt, you have something?
I do have a question. The new structure to be added on to the pool house looks like it is, I don't know, 1.5 feet closer to the property line than the existing pool house. Is that accurate? What was the rationale? Just give me a reason why it needs to go just that much closer. If the existing pool house is already
Go back up
8 foot 3 inches, I mean, to make maybe make it a little bit more palatable, could you just stick to that distance so you're not encroaching any further than what the structure already encroaches? Am I asking
I
the correct
understand
question?
what you're asking, and to be honest, I asked the exact same thing. It's a little bit complicated without looking at it, but I will tell you the situation is the pitches are different on the two sides of the house.
Okay.
And so when it was designed by the design team, when you're looking at it, when this new structure comes out, it will be all cockeyed the way the wall, they come down. And so when obviously they're making it to look the best from the inside, and they said, because when I looked at it from the outside, I thought this looks a little funny how it's that way. They said it's best to do it this way. That way it looks even from the inside. So that was the reason why
I have
they
the
suggested.
exact same thought as when I first saw it.
Mhm.
When I started working over there, we had our first survey done, and I realized that pool house was only 8 feet off the lot line. I did some research with the city, and that building, because it's smaller and it's considered a shed, and so it was only had to be 5 feet off the lot line. So it was legal when it was applied for, the way things were. Okay, so
So it's there legally.
yeah,
We're not
it was there.
disputing.
Yeah, it was there
Yeah,
legally.
we're not disputing.
Right, right.
No, it's not. That's not true. It's greater than 160 square feet originally, so it has to be 10 foot minimum
Well,
from the side yard. Yes, so the accessory structure, the current one is greater than 160 square feet, so that's required to be a 10-foot minimum from the side yard. If it was 160 square feet or less, it's required to be 5 foot from the side and the rear, and then a minimum 10 feet from the house. So when you go bigger, you have to increase the setbacks. So the 10 foot from the side, the 5 foot minimum, or excuse me, 20 foot minimum from the house and 20 foot from the rear yard.
Thank you. Did you get that?
So then when she split that lot, they only made it 8 feet.
When they split the lot, according to the survey that's in our file that I gave you all copies of, they said they were going to be 10 feet. That's why it was approved by the city, because that's what they said on their paper. We don't know any different, right? So we're making sure the 10 foot was there on paper and signed it. So obviously,
The county has
It
to
wasn't.
approve that too. That was
So-
a registered surveyor that submitted that.
you know what? Surveying is a whole other topic for another meeting.
Yes.
You can have 10 surveyors and have 10 different surveys. So
Not to get into the weeds,
Yes,
but
Let's
I think what happened is the guy who built the pool house used a survey, and he's the one who drew the pool house on there and showed the set.
Could be. Could be. Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing. And gentlemen, let's discuss this amongst ourselves. Please.
Well, the way I see it, I think they really made their point for the hardship. I mean, it really kind of spelled out there.
I don't think they should be held accountable for a mistake that was made prior to them purchasing the property. I guess that's where I'm at. I mean, is it unfortunate? Yes, it's unfortunate for everybody that's involved, but I don't think that I don't think they, frankly, I think they're doing more work than they ought to be doing by moving the electric line, but that's my opinion on the matter.
I think you're both victims of a terrible error. that
I would
was made
agree.
back
I would
in
agree.
1999.
I would agree.
It's created a hardship for both.
Okay, I'm going to come back into the public hearing and may I have a motion, please?
I'll motion that we approve as presented.
Second,
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. Will the secretary call the roll?
Chris, that you seconded.
Yeah, Chris
Thank
seconded.
you. Matt Bostorff, yes. Judy Ennis.
Yes.
Hobie Johnson, recused. Rod Noble.
Yes.
Chris Ostrowski.
yes.
Jay Sockman.
Yes.
All right, your request for your variance has been granted. We now have, if everyone's still awake, we have lobby visitation. Nobody wants to visit with us. I thank you all for your attendance. I thank the board for their diligent listening to all of the testimony. And I especially thank the planning department for their information that they brought to us.
In my short tenure here, I spent more time looking at that case than I did all the rest of them
I can
combined.
believe that, Rod.
Yeah.
Just times that by 4 for the planning department.
Yeah.
Meeting adjourned.
I was going to say, may I have a motion for
So
adjournment?